Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to The Chosen Life. I'm your host, The Chosen Lawyer. After weeks of marinating on this particular episode, I'm very excited to be here today. I got to speak with Melissa for a few minutes, and it's amazing. I already feel like I've known her for a lifetime, and you're about to learn about her as well. When you think about integrity, hard work, trustworthiness in politics, it's Melissa Lanstman. Melissa,
Wow.
Welcome to The Chosen Life.
Well, that's a good intro. Thanks for having me.
The whole part about podcasting, it's about the intro at the end of the day, my feeling is. And it's funny, we started, reminiscing and realizing we're brothers and sisters from different mothers,
For sure.
because we realize now we could have made a whole episode, on our various interests, including baseballs and cars. And it's funny how you live lives in different arenas, and yet we gravitate to similar interests.
Well, it sounds like, I grew up literally around the corner from where you live, and we never crossed paths before. So this is a good opportunity to get to know you and for your viewers to get to know this.
Well, like I was telling you, why this episode came to be was that I was speaking to my future nephew-in-law. And
do we like him?
We love him.
Okay, good.
Zach Rain Finance. He's been twice on The Chosen Life already because he's that good. He has a good base, actually. It's funny. His audience comes and gravitates to the podcast. And we were talking after one episode, and he said to me, you have to have Melissa next. I said, she's on the list, and I was thinking about her last night. This means we got to do it now. I was going to wait for a few weeks, and I said, Zach, the fact that you raised it, it's destiny. I'm going to do it. I reached out to your team, and lo and behold, within a day, let's do it.
Amazing.
Is that
so? That's like Zach. First of all, welcome to the family.
Yes.
You're like marrying into a good one, it seems. And I'm looking forward to this. And we take the opportunity to do these things because they're real, and you get to see all of the sort of the pomp and circumstance of Parliament, and you never get to know who leaders are in your community. So I'm glad that you're doing this.
And I've been watching a lot of your videos you're posting online, and I got to tell you, you are a rock star on social media. The people love you. I see the comments. I see the stuff you put out there, and it's exactly the way you're saying it. It looks and it feels real, authentic. This is who Melissa is. This is what I'm about, and this is what I'm putting out there.
I certainly hope so, and I have plenty of years to disappoint everybody, but for now, I'm learning the trade, and it's a tough gig. Nobody can really explain to you what it feels like to have that responsibility, and it's a humbling feeling to be able to speak and to do the thing that you think is right, and then to get the support, the overwhelming support of the community. So I'm pretty happy about that. And again, lots of time to screw up.
Well, I was going to be saying this near the end of the episode, but I am going to throw that out there now, that we're going to look back on this episode in a few years when you are going to be the future Prime Minister of Canada. I see that happening. I'm manifesting this for you. And when you are at that office, I hope you will be back on The Chosen Life by then.
Well, I'll always be back on The Chosen Life. I don't know what office it's going to be, because I always, you make plans and then God laughs. So we're going to take it one step at a time, and I'm going to make sure that the people of Thornhill are represented very well before we take any next steps. And hopefully that next step, first and foremost, will be a strong, stable, national conservative majority government.
Amen. Well, one of the first things I will tell you is that I knew we were going to get along before we met. Why? We have the common love of Thornhill and sneakers.
For sure.
You always been a sneakerhead?
Life is too short to wear dress shoes. It's too short to wear black and blue suits. Look, I'm a sneaker fan. I'm very casual for a politician, because I think that's how people live. I don't get dressed up on Saturdays and Sundays, and I take that right into the week.
I can tell you as a lawyer how many times I've had client appointments back when we actually had appointments, right? Like when we actually met people face to face, like we're doing this right now.
Yeah.
And then it became a virtual world and started signing people up virtually. And I don't see that changing, that part of it, but it's still nice to have in person, especially when you're doing seminars and things like that. It's really hard to do it online, I find. But I would come to meet people and they'd say, oh, you're wearing a suit with sneakers. That's original. And I've been doing this for years. And I sometimes I get that crooked look a bit, and I would see almost like in their brain, they're trying to measure me up, saying, how professional is he based on his shoes? But today, I don't think that's the case anymore. What do you think?
I think you're a solid lawyer in good taste, with good taste in sneakers. I think this is a business of relationships, particularly politics. It's a business of connecting with people and meeting people. So I think, the Zoom world, not a fan of it, was never a fan of it, but I think it's particularly terrible for trying to for trying to be empathetic to people's stories, for trying to help them, for trying to sort of get the feeling of of what it's like to be in their shoes. You can't do that on Zoom, so I hope that we never do that again.
I hope so as well. I now that we're seeing face to face, like I told you I went to Miami for a vacation before this interview, and I was away for a little bit, and it's amazing, when you're seeing in different, it's almost like you're in a different world. It's like you're going back in a time machine to what it was, and then you come back here, and we're starting to get there. But every place in the world is different with that. But amen that we all getting back to normalcy.
For sure.
Whatever normalcy is.
Yeah. Let's never go back.
So that being said, first and foremost, before we begin everything, people see Melissa Lanstman. They want to hear, in your words, the Melissa Lanstman story. You come into this world, you grow up through. At what point did you know you were going to be doing what you're doing right now?
Well, I grew up like a lot of other people right here in Thornhill to immigrant parents. They worked hard. I came from what I call a mixed marriage. My mom was a liberal. My father was a conservative, and it was always sort of a fight of who gets Melissa, which side is she going to choose. So I grew up in a family where every discussion was on the table, that I was super engaged in world affairs, and the conversations were always sort of a level above where they should have been for a little kid, because I grew up with a much older brother. So if I couldn't keep up with the conversation, it just wasn't happening. So I grew up to two parents that came to this country. My dad's an engineer who was uncredentialed, who worked really hard as a cab driver, and then a plate owner, and then a dispatcher, and then a small business guy, and then a medium business guy. And so he worked his way up. And I grew up with a mom who was a professional, who went to school here, who was an accountant. And it's interesting, because what shaped my worldview is how the world treated them so differently. Both really, really smart, but my dad didn't wear a suit to work, and my mom did. And she worked in an office, and my dad didn't. And the way that the world treated either of them was shocking to me. The people talked to my mom in a very different way that they talked to my dad, and I saw that as a huge problem, and it really, really shaped my worldview of the way that we look at the value of work in this world, the value of hard work, and getting ahead and putting food on the table and making sure your kids are educated and have every opportunity. And my mom didn't do that any more than my dad, because she had a different job. And my dad didn't do that any more than my mom, because he had a different job. And it colored my view about what it means to do the right thing. I also grew up in a hardcore Zionist family. I grew up with a love for Israel, with a love for Judaism, with a love for hard work, and in a really, really loving family. And it was right here like everyone else. And that's what shaped Melissa. Now, there's never a clear path to politics, because I also grew up in a family where it was like, okay, maybe you're not smart enough to be a doctor. We want you to be a lawyer. You could be an accountant. Your mom's an accountant, but you could probably be a really good lawyer. And politics was like, you can't do this. It's a hobby. Get a real job. And I kept doing this, and I got into it really, really young. Then my parents started getting interested. They started sort of following me, because I was so passionate about being involved in politics and sort of youth groups and Israel advocacy. And they just saw a fire, and they let me run with it. And I'm really lucky to have parents who just let me run with it.
Do you think it's a coincidence that a lot of people that get into politics do have a legal background?
Well, it's not a coincidence. It's actually rather helpful. Look, at the end of the day, we are looking through complicated, sometimes not complicated, but complicated legislation, and we're the ones who vote on it. We vote on it on behalf of the people of Thornhill. Now, there's lots of parts to this job, but fundamentally, at the end of the day, you're the one passing laws. So you better understand, or you better find someone who's going to explain it to you.
And so having that background really, really helps.
For sure.
It's funny, because we were talking about growing up with immigrant parents, and I grew up the same way. It was doctor, lawyer, accountant, take your pick. Marketing?
That's right.
No, I'm sorry, that does not fit into one of the three categories.
That's right.
And I've had people ask me, they said, you enjoy speaking in groups and everything else. You have your opinions. Why don't you go into politics? And it's funny, as a lawyer, it seems like I could see the springboard of it, but you have to make that decision. It's a really big decision at the end of the day. It's no different to me when somebody religious-wise decides to become a priest or a rabbi. That really takes your identity, you know? And you choose to be a lawyer, that's part of your identity. And so for you, you know, when you made that decision to have that springboard, did you ever have a fear as far as losing that identity by choosing that career?
Well, I never became a lawyer. I worked in all kinds of different things.
Lucky you, by the way. Good choice.
Probably a good idea. But I worked in politics. I worked in the private sector. I ran a big piece of a business in the PR world, and I was a good communicator. I remember once I when I was young, I was, I don't really want to go to university. Maybe it's not my thing. Maybe I just want to explore a little bit, and that was just not an option. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, well, maybe I'll go to school for English Lit. Like I could just sit around in the courtyard, read books all day, do university things. Make that what you will. And my dad's like, no, absolutely not. You're not going to school for English. Like, you're not living here forever. So it was, it was as much as they allowed me to do what I wanted to do and frankly encouraged me to do what I want to do. There was a lot of limits on that.
I can imagine. Now, where you're at today, being an MP, at what point did you make the decision, I want to go for this? I think I have a really good chance at it. Like, walk us through that process.
I've wanted to do this for a long time, and we were blessed in the community to have Peter Kent here as the federal MP.
Very, very loved Peter Kent.
Right.
Yes.
So, and I worked with Peter, and we had Peter's first barbecue in the community, and I'd always been a sort of a volunteer, and I'd worked on national campaigns, and I got to work side by side with Stephen Harper and lots of the ministers that we remember from a government of days that were better than these days that we have now. And I said, one day I'm going to do this. And I thought that I had a bit more time. I thought Peter had another 4 years in him, so I wasn't really thinking about it. And Peter told me sometime, in last August, he's I'm not doing this again. I'm going to do some other things. I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be a really tough nomination, and I want to do this. So I just decided that all of my skills and all of my training were going to go into fighting for this nomination, because I knew that I could represent this community well. And here we are. There's a lot of messiness on the way, but sure. But here we are, and I'm 6 months into the job. I've got a lot to learn.
Feels like 6 years, by the way.
Tell me about it. Feels like 6 years for me.
Because it's a couple of things in my mind, because you were replacing a legend. I didn't know we were going to go there now, but Peter Kent's like the Babe Ruth of Thornhill.
Totally.
Like, everybody loves Peter. Like,
absolutely.
I've been to a lot of events, and Peter is like, I hate to say God, but like Peter is
he's still
Moses.
loved.
He's like
I know. He
like
still
Moses.
comes here too, and he's been so helpful and such a mentor. And if I could do half as good as him in my first number of months, which I'm trying to do, I think we're going to serve this community well. We have a super engaged electorate in Thornhill. We have young people that want to be involved. We've got older people that want to be involved, and everybody's got an opinion here. And I get a lot of good advice from the community. But first and foremost, it's like a what would Peter do?
Yes.
And sometimes it's not the same as what I would do, and we have a different style. But I always rely on his advice, his counsel, and his mentorship. And I'm really, really blessed to have that. Lots of people don't just step into an office of a guy in the same party. There's sometimes you beat somebody
right.
from another party and you don't know where to start. But like, this was like a turnkey operation. He had great staff. He's got a great footprint. The relationships were seamless. I'm like super, super blessed with the circumstance in which I get to represent the riding.
I've never heard a bad thing said about Peter Kent, to be honest. And I know met him enough times. Do you want one good Peter Kent story?
Let's do it. Peter
Kent knocking on the door at my mom's house. I'm eating Chinese food and it's dinner time. And she goes over to the door. She opens up. Peter, how are you, Peter? And he's like, nice to meet you. Peter, listen, you have my vote. You need to go in the other houses. And don't waste time, Peter. You have to go. Go, Peter, go. And my mom shoos Peter Kent to go to the other houses and get more votes.
Well, your mom knows how to do this.
She's strong-willed. She's probably been his campaign manager. But I met him at a synagogue function, I remember. And like, he was just very engaging. And the funny thing out of it is, and it's not disrespectful to Peter Kent at all, but when you were coming in, I didn't know you yet. And I saw the signs. I said, how is this person going to live through Peter Kent's shadow? To be honest, this is now Melissa Lanstman territory. Like, you've came...
It's a both territory.
Like I'm saying, not in a bad way, but at the end of the day, we remember Peter, we love Peter, but you've put your footprint. People know you, recognize you, and you already have to overcome that part of it. It's great to have his support, but you've made your way, and I found that very impressive.
Yeah, look, I had every advantage to be able to start on the right foot. Everything was set up, everything. When you have such a good MP here for 12 years and you have the support of that MP, there's a lot of people that have built trust with Peter, and him transferring that trust to me allowed a lot of other people to do it without necessarily meeting me. And I've still got so many people to meet here. We're just getting into a time where we can meet people in person, and I've got a lot of catching up to do for a guy who was here for 12 years.
It's amazing. And he feels like it was here for 30 years. So
I know.
But you feel like you've been here for 6 already.
That's right. That's right.
That being said, to the young voters out there, and one thing with politics, especially Canadian politics, I found as the years went along, the voters are coming up as they're turning of age, but they seem less engaged, disenchanted. They don't feel they have a say. They don't have a vote. And the one thing is, you're really good at reaching that audience. And for the people watching that are into Thornhill writing, getting to know you, and saying, what does an MP do? Walk us through that. What essentially voting, making laws, like what is the day-to-day of Melissa Lanstman?
Yeah, well, the day-to-day is that there's never 2 days that are the same. And so there is Melissa Lanstman in Ottawa standing up for the community and the interests of the community in Ottawa on various pieces of legislation, on programs, on the ability to get grants and to help organizations through the rough
to
patch or to grow. That's the Ottawa part of it. There's the legislative piece. There's the voting on legislation. There's the speaking to bills. There's the being part of the Conservative team, and the people of Thornhill had the good sense to elect a Conservative again through what is another liberal government. So there's an important job of opposition, and then there's the Thornhill part, which is actually the part that I like the most, which is engagement in the community, is solving people's problems. And we've got I don't do that myself. We've got a great office here, and so if you've got a passport problem, an immigration problem, problem with the big bad tax man, we will help you through it. We're talking to businesses, making sure that policy in this country is friendly for people to have small businesses, and not just because they started with a really big business and now they have a small business, but to grow in this community, to make their footprint in Thornhill, to allow young people to own a home here, to allow communities to have the freedom to choose and practice whatever they want whenever they want. Like we're in an interesting situation, and I know that we're going to talk about this in this country, and it's not one that I think is going in the right direction. I think this country is going in the wrong direction, and I think the people of Thornhill are dependent on me to have their voice heard in Ottawa on what I think is going wrong.
It feels like we're not even going in the wrong direction. We're at this roadblock. Like we're driving down this horrible road, and we've reached this roadblock. Like the lights are off, and where are we supposed to go? But we will get into that.
We will.
You already answered one of my questions clearly, like when we were talking beforehand, as far as being born, raised in Thornhill. So I would take it that being an MP in Thornhill was a no-brainer, simply because you were born here.
For sure.
You've grown up here. You're invested in here. You love this community. So that
I won like the birth lottery. Like my parents
Yes.
came here. They lived at Bathurst and Steeles, and then once you made my mom was like, we're moving north of Steeles. Like that was the dream. So I was I was like 2 years old, or probably not even 2 years old when they bought their first house here. And before that, we were on the other side of Thornhill. It's like east side Thornhill. It's like a bit foreign to me. It's not lots of it is not part of our riding anymore. But I mean, I grew up here. I see that. There's something special about a Thornhill kid. They come back.
Yes.
Right?
They always seem to.
They always come back. So we have people that leave for university. Maybe they meet somebody. Maybe they flirt with Midtown a little bit on a condo, but they always come back. So it's amazing just, being out and about in the community, how many people are, back in Thornhill Woods or back just north of here where you can reconnect with people. So it's a fun community, and it's a real gem in the middle of not only a sea of red, but we've just got so much going on here, and such a special place to share with the world in terms of who we are and what we believe.
Thornhill adopted me as a teenager, and so
We're not letting you go.
and I'm no plans to go. I love it here. I love eating at Center Street Deli. I love seeing the community, and it is a very special community. Like you're saying, God willing, the subway will come one day. But regardless, it's there, and it's funny because you're right in Toronto, but you're not, and you can go north, but you're not. So it's a great right in between. Now, when we were talking about your parents, and as far as their divide politically wise, I try to explain to millennials now what you see as political parties today and what you think they represent was very different when we were kids.
For sure.
Because in my mind, and I'm overgeneralizing obviously, but you had the conservative on the right, liberals in the middle, and the NDP on the left. Now it feels like the liberals have gone where the NDP were. The NDP have dropped off to where the Green Party is. Green Party, we won't even go there. And the conservatives have stayed consistent. From that end, growing up and having diversity with your parents as far as where they were headed, I see where other politicians have gone, and it feels like there is an allegiance for a lot, but some people like to flip-flop. Why did you choose the Conservative Party? What was your reasoning?
Well, I thought this was the party that most clearly represented the values that, whether my parents knew it or not, raised me with. I think it's the only party that respects freedom. I think it's the only party that respects freedom of religion and celebrates it. I think it's the only party that even has, a fiscal bone in its body and even talks about the sustainability of our finances. I think it's a party that is big tent and welcoming, and there's been many different iterations of the Conservative Party, and I've always had a home in it. And today, I don't understand the Liberal Party of today. I understand that it's bad for the country. I understand that it's in a marriage with an NDP party. I think it's eaten the lunch of the NDP and just taken that very, very far left view. This is not the Liberal Party that my mother supported. Right. There was once a Liberal Party that was rather fiscally responsible. Mm-hmm. Some would argue, but rather fiscally responsible, who cared about Canada's place in the world, who cared about those things. And this is not the Liberal Party that we're seeing under Justin Trudeau. So, my mom switched, like all good conservatives. She made a switch in 2006 when she saw my interest in politics, and I think she latched onto the vision of Stephen Harper, like so many did in this community, and she never looked back. But that was close to her values. I would call her a blue liberal, purple. She was a purple.
Now, I can't tell you how many times I've sat at dinner parties and had engagements with people, and they come back and they're saying, I did not vote for Stephen Harper. I did not appreciate how good we had it until he left, and I'm so sorry what I did. That was the ongoing sentiment I noticed. But we can't go back in the time machine at the end of the day. And it's funny because at the end of the day, there are votes and people do get to decide. And we are where we are today. And that's one of the things I want to just jump right into. When you think of Canada today, where are we at today? Where do you see Canada currently?
Look, I think we're in a place where we are uncompetitive and we could be more competitive. I think we're in a place where we have no vision for who we want to be. Like when you're talking about, and many will understand this from a business perspective, when you have this big challenge question of like, what are we trying to solve? I think we're just sort of hapless, like in the wind. We're printing money, meaning there is less dollars chasing fewer goods, which is raising the price of everything. That's what you're seeing, the inflationary pressure. We are printing money when we don't have it for things that we don't need, and we're not thinking about what that means for the future. We've got 100% increases in the last year on permanent program spending. That's problematic in my view, and this is more of an ideological problem for me. And the way that I explain it is, we used to have groups, strong civil society groups, churches, synagogues, Rotary clubs, Jewish Youth Network, whatever it is, that used to play this role in the community to take care of the community. And the government sort of came in and says, we can do it better. And the truth is the government can never do anything better than civil society can. I fundamentally believe that. And so when government gets bigger, it's really, really hard to make it smaller, and it weakens civil society, and it weakens our institutions, and it weakens our community, and we start to rely on government for things we never needed to rely on government. And again, the last person I want running my business or my life or the decisions for my family is the government. They don't do it well.
I was telling you off camera before we were going to go live. Imagine, the idea of somebody comes to a lawyer and they're going to refinance their house.
Right.
And they're sitting with like 6 credit card debts, a couple lines of credit. And what is the worst possible thing to do is to refinance, pull out more money, take on more debt rather than getting your fiscal house in order.
That's right.
And it's funny because, the mentality the immigrant mentality in the 60s, 70s, 80s was, I'm going to pay off my mortgage and then I'm going to buy investment properties. I'm going to build myself, a nest egg, so to speak. Not to get to the point that I'm in my 60s and 70s, I'm up to my eyeballs in debt, and my income is nowhere close to what I need to live on.
Yeah, like we've organized. It's not only the finances. We've organized ourselves out of being competitive into this like regulatory hell.
Yes. Pardon
my French. Into where it's hard to build things. It's hard to grow a business here. It's hard to get a driver's license here. It's hard to get a passport. Why are these things so hard when everything else is at the tip of your fingers and everything else in your life is easier? Government makes things harder. And we've overregulated ourselves to the point where you've got people, in our age bracket that are like, I don't want to do this anymore here. I don't want to raise my family in this community. I can't afford to raise my family in this community. I don't understand. I can't make sense of any of the policies. Why is the price of gas so high? Why are my groceries, twice as much for half as much? Why are we in a cost of living crisis? Because, well, the answer is we had gone into something in the last 2 years that we weren't ready for, and then we just blew the bank. And now we are having a hard time getting off of that, and we continue to do the things that we don't necessarily need to do, and it's hard to wean people off of the program.
The common thing I'm told by business owners, I have a lot of them as clients,
sure,
and they tell me it's very, very simple. You can't sit as a business, hand out money like Pez, and hope it's going to work out. There's only going to be one of two things going to happen. You're either going to print more and you're going to make your money completely worthless, or you're going to tax everybody even more to recoup it. And either way, it gives no hope to the business owners, like you said, and they have to look at other climates and environments to be able to find where
sure.
to sustain themselves. And that's a scary thing because, Canada was a point of manufacturing. There was a point of business growth, and people were very, strong in their communities. And then you hear of towns where they lose their industry, they start to shut down. And that's the saddest thing possible.
Yeah, look, we're not going to make the things that we used to make, but we certainly should be competitive in other industries. We've got a natural resources sector that can power the world. We've got enough educated people, in order to frankly do anything we wanted in the world. We've got enough food to feed ourselves. We can be energy independent. We can do all of these things, but we don't.
Yes.
One of the things, the people making decisions in Ottawa. I've never run a business. I'll give you the perfect little story.
Please.
I was setting up this office, and it's an MP office. I've set up offices before. We ran I've run in companies where achieve a profit because that's what you do in business. And so the person on the other line was telling me, well, it's like running a small business. Running an office. You get a budget and you can hire in your budget. I'm like, that's not like running a small business at all. You're just giving me money for us to do the activities. That's not what a business is. A business is supposed to clear profit. So just the understanding of how the real world works and the policymakers in Ottawa. And this is why I try to get out in the community.
Yes,
this is why I try to talk to as many people as I can, because the policymakers in Ottawa end up being the gatekeepers to our future. They end up hampering us from a regulatory perspective, without even an ounce of care for frankly the competitiveness that we should be striving for.
So that being said, we got 3 years to go, right? Until the next federal election.
Maybe. I mean, a deal is as good as a deal is on the paper napkin that it's written on, and I haven't seen the paper napkin, so we'll see. Like there's some big spending plans. You know when in the movies when they say like, is there anybody who has a reason why these two people should not be married?
Yes.
In holy matrimony or whatever the line is in all of those movies. I've never actually seen that happen at a wedding. And you're like, yes, I can think of 1,000 reasons why the NDP shouldn't marry the Liberals, and I'm sure the Liberals have 1,000 reasons that they shouldn't marry the NDP,
Right.
and the NDP have 1,000 reasons why they shouldn't marry the Liberals. So we'll see how long that marriage lasts. That's all I'll say to that.
Fair enough. It's I was surprised personally, but it's funny. It looks good, and I think in some people's minds as far as being have cohesiveness. But when they actually sit down and realize that their values don't match,
for sure,
all the amount of marriage counseling will not necessarily fix that.
That's right. It's going to cost a lot.
So now we were speaking as well about this book that came out, right?
It's a thin little book.
Okay, and
it's called The Budget.
Called The Budget, right? I like fables myself. Is
that your favorite?
You know what? I like optimistic stories, and I like ones where there's happy endings. Yes, and when I'm starting to read a story in a fable, and I don't know where it's going exactly, and this ending can only go bad. To me, it's like watching a horror movie. That's the best way I can describe that budget is a horror movie from a business perspective.
Right.
And when you went through it, like what were impressions you had? Like, did anything stick out to you in particular?
Yeah, look, so a budget document should be the government's vision. It should be the government's vision of where they want the country. They have one opportunity every year to be able to communicate with the Canadian public, like, hey guys, this is where we're going. This is the direction that we're taking our country in. And this document was soft on any kind of vision. I suppose it could have been worse, but not much. Like, this is $50 billion of new spending. And part of that is the merger with the NDP, but we don't have a plan. We have a whole bunch of ideological promises that we want to be true that aren't going to be true. Like, everybody needs to drive an electric car in the next 10 years. Well, we all know that's not going to happen. We're about 3% in this province. Dental care. There was no promise of pharmacare, but apparently it's coming. And we've just got to get, like, the house is on fire, and we've got to put out the fire, not throw gasoline on it. And I think that's exactly what this budget does in terms of spending. And that's worse. It's spending without any kind of vision for Canada.
Even like I'm involved in the real estate market heavily as a real estate lawyer, and saying, okay, foreigners are now banned from buying for the next 2 years. When you actually look at the numbers, how many are actually buying and the percentage of everything else, it's nice window dressing. I think it may look good to the public, but the reality is it's not going to have an effect.
Yeah, a lot of these things. I think the housing. It's not a simple answer, but I think one of the issues with housing is that we just don't have enough of it, and nothing in this budget says this is how many houses we are going to build this year. It's like fancy savings programs, fancy some kind of thing called the accelerator, a tax on or a ban on foreign buyers. But none of these things actually solve the supply side problem of we don't have enough of this asset, and we've got to build more. So, like, if I was to make an amendment, I would be like, delete everything after the date and start over. That's what I would do with this budget.
It feels to me like a metaphor of, let's say, taking a restaurant that's failing, bringing somebody off the street that has no experience whatsoever, making them to write the menu, pick the ingredients, and cook it themselves. And you don't have the training and the experience. Maybe you shouldn't be doing this. And that's kind of feels like somebody that doesn't really understand what long-term effects are in the future.
Absolutely.
Just let's slap.
But I'd rather eat that meal, because at least at the end of that meal, you'll know, okay, like I don't like this. I'm gonna switch this. I'm not gonna come here again. The problem is with spending plans like this, you're stuck with this for a really long time. Your kids are stuck with it. Their kids are stuck with it. Their kids are stuck with it.
Right. And that's the future effects, as far as once you implement something and it doesn't go so great, it's really hard to get out of that cycle sometimes.
Correct.
Now, that being said, I'm going to ask you to wear a very difficult hat.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to put on your teacher hat right now. Okay. And we're sitting in our classroom. Over their terms, the two leaders from the other parties, we got Justin, we got Jagmeet, and their parties. Since they've come to be, you need to sit and you need to write out their report card. If you had to give them a grade and you had to give the comments as a teacher, what would you be saying to each of them?
Okay, I think this one's an easy one for me. I think Justin Trudeau has failed this country. I think he continues to fail this country. And I'm not sure that that anybody has the confidence in Canada as a place to come, a place to grow, a place to raise your family, and a place to just live your lives, work harder, getting ahead. I think all of those things are missing. So like you didn't even get part marks on when you do the math equation and you're like, oh, we'll give the kid some part marks for trying. Like he doesn't even get part marks for trying because I just don't think he's trying. I think our relationships with countries around the world are worse than they ever had been. Maybe there's an exception, but I can't think of one right now. I think that Canadians see Canada as a place that they would rather leave than come and start a new life, and I think that's very, very dangerous. And I'm not sure what we're doing here. And with Jagmeet Singh, I think he negotiated a few things out of this prime minister. So I give him a little bit of a better grade than a failing grade. At least the NDP believes in something, so you can almost respect that. And at least they're aiming for something. They're aiming to get something for their electorate. But I think I think that he was duped into a bad marriage, and we'll see what happens. The only thing that I do know is that it's going to cost us a lot of money, whatever this experiment is.
Interesting. So we're giving.
What about you?
Well, first of all, I guess in the drama category, if we're gonna go different categories, having part-time experience in that, I can't even give a passing grade either. At this point, it feels like in my mind when I was watching this as an outsider, I don't think Justin really even wanted this term. I think that he felt like he had to do it. I think now he's here, kind of like a deer in the headlights, and like get me out of this term as quickly as possible.
Right.
That's what it kind of feels like. I've watched leaders of heads of industries. It doesn't feel like somebody that I'm going to be in the forefront. I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to find the way for you. It's just get me out of here as quickly as possible. And guys, good luck. And I'll just slap it together. That doesn't invoke to me leadership and true feeling of comfort. And that's where I feel the party's at there. I think that once he's going to be gone, I don't know who's going to take over for him, but they're going to have a hill to climb. And that's what they chose. It's like when you mortgage your future and when you sell your soul to the devil, so to speak, you're going to have to pay for that. And I think they're going to have a lot of years to rebuild afterwards. And from Jagmeet's point of view, I think he looks great on Instagram. And I think he relates to the people he's supposed to. It's just that at the end of the day, with the platform they're going to put on, there's always going to be a ceiling. There's only so where you can go.
Yeah, they're not running to be government.
They're not. They're like when I was a kid, it was a glorified Green Party, and there was various points that Jagmeet was going to be ousted. That was the word on the street, and he pulled it through. But at the end of the day, there's just a ceiling of what you can go through. At the end of the day, it just saddens me that at the end of the day, when I watch it outside as a business owner, that more Canadians don't band together, understand, and really take the time to speak to their leaders and understand what the true ramifications are, and to be able to put a country together and a leadership group in that can lead us going forward. And that's one of the things we will talk about, is because in the Conservative Party, we do have the election coming up from the head there. You know what? Why don't we jump into there? Because I think it's a very good segue, because it is coming up. And number one, why do we not see your name on the ballot?
Well, I've got my best years ahead of me. I've got a lot to learn, and I'm supporting my friend Pierre in this one. He's a longtime friend. He was a big supporter of mine when I decided to seek this nomination, and has been a great mentor throughout my political life. And I think that he's going to be the next Prime Minister of Canada, and I want to help him, and I want to serve in his government. So that's the answer to that. But we have a really unique opportunity in the Conservative Party, because I think there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of anger, and whether whether it's about COVID or whether it's about whatever it is, but whether it's about it's you got a hard time getting by, filling your car with gas, paying rent, buying food. There is anger, and there is frustration, and there is a government in Ottawa that is not listening to anyone. So we have a unique opportunity as Conservatives to fight on our issue. We are fiscal Conservatives. We are the party of freedom, of liberty, of democracy, of the rule of law. And there is no better time right now in this country than to show Canadians that we are ready to govern, and we can be trusted to govern. And for us within our own party to have a conversation of what that looks like. So
if you had to give Pierre put that hat back on, if we're going to give Pierre a report card so far of what he's done, What do you think is going right for him? Like, what?
Look, so far, I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I mean, he's drawing crowds. You know, in the last number of weeks in Calgary, he had a crowd of 6,500 people. In places like Kelowna, in BC, we brought him through Thornhill, and we brought him through very early on in the process. This was his first stop, so I got more flack on, hey, how come you didn't tell me that Pierre was here? We were still under some kind of weird COVID restrictions, but you know, I got more flack of, man, I really wanted to meet him. So he's drawing on massive amounts of people who are outside of the realm of what a traditional conservative voter is. And I think this is more than just a politician. I think this is a movement, and it's, you know, I'd like to hear the people argue about, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. People, you know, a number of people don't matter. They do. People aren't engaged in politics. They haven't been engaged in politics in a long time. And I think Pierre is tapping into something that's really unique and special, and is going to answer the frustration, is going to get us back on, you know, on the right side of history, and in a sustainable future that, that your kids aren't going to pay for, maybe.
I think he jumped and put his hat in very early on. Yeah. And I think that really worked in his favor.
For sure.
In my mind, it's going to come down to him or Brown, Patrick Brown.
Yeah.
I think those are the two horses that I most see in this race, and neck and neck as far as where they're going to go. I'm very interested in watching the debates seeing where it's going to head. Hopefully not too much mudslinging, but that's politics, right? It's inevitable.
Yeah, the worst fights are the family fights, right? Like the worst fights are the ones amongst conservatives. But you know, even the topics of debate, even the direction of the party, even the conversations that we're having amongst amongst each other is, you know, we're at a crossroads. Either we figure something out, and the vision that we want to put to Canadians for them to have the trust to make us government, you know, or we go into this weird, you know, permanent opposition. So this is the juncture where we get to have that conversation, and I look forward to to talking about the issues that make us conservatives, and then hopefully sharing that with the rest of the GTA, so I can have some friends in caucus.
How does it work though? Like, as a layman now, when you're speaking this way, I'm thinking of the whole family dynamic, right?
Yeah.
So does it become awkward though when you do endorse a candidate? So for example, if you're seated beside Patrick or another candidate, and they know that you're endorsing Pierre, is there any kind of awkwardness that way, or is it understood?
Look, I think at the end of the day, I think politicians that are the most successful are the ones that are respectful. So, you know, you can endorse a candidate because you think they're going to be prime minister and you believe in their vision. You don't have to like throw mud at the other conservatives. I've done that once before. I learned my lesson. Yes. And I've never done that since. And you know, you either learn your lesson the hard way, or you were raised right, or you're a POS that just goes after other candidates. And that makes it awkward. My favorite elections and my favorite candidates always are the ones at the end of the day that try to avoid that mudslinging. Sure. They stick to the topics, they stick to the issues, they connect with people, they focus on those relationships. And when you come across as a strong leader and you're encompassing, I think that at the end of the day, I think you're gonna end up with the best result, in my opinion. I think you're right.
But it'll be interesting, and like you said, it's a very interesting time right now in Canada. And ultimately now, when you're looking into the future of where we're at, and unfortunately, you know, for a lot of non-Canadians, when they talk about Canada, we're not in a great place right now. We're not seeing great in the world eye. And that's a sad thing, because we are a great nation, and we have so much promise, and we've had such a rich history. And I would love to see a beautiful future for Canada. That being said, to get that future that we deserve and we need, what do we need from a party, and what do we need from a leader ultimately, in your mind? Well, we need somebody who's unafraid of, you know, it's almost weird. It's almost when you're not offended, it's like offensive. We're in this woke era of politics of not do the right thing, but do the popular thing. Yeah. And when you choose principle over popularity, when you choose fiscal responsibility over recklessness, when you choose to be a light in the world of freedom, of democracy, of the rule of law, versus going along to get along and dressing up in the costume while you do it abroad, I think there's a big difference in the way that Canadians feel about their country and the world sees us. I think that we have when we talk, people listen.
And if we say nonsense, they'll stop listening. And I think that's what's happened now. So there is a lot of opportunity for a leader to put down or to put forward a vision to Canadians about what we want to be. How many people do we want in this country? What do we want? GDP growth, like what are our benchmarks? What kind of businesses do we want to attract? Can we exploit our natural resources to be a powerful force of good in the world? Rather than have the government that we currently have treated as an environmental Loch Ness monster. We have so much to give the world. We have so much talent in Canada. We've got enough food to grow our own. We've got enough resources to make us energy independent. We've got all these things, and if we don't, we can tap into them. And if we have the right climate and it's attractive, then we'll have plenty of private capital, plenty of foreign capital coming into the country saying, we believe in you. This is the place where we want to do business. This is the place where we want to live. This is the place where we want to raise our family. This is the place where we want to stay. I don't hear anybody talking like that.
No. But, the most exciting times when I think of Canada, where we're the hub for movies, everybody wants to film here. Everybody wants to go into our production facilities. Bay Street is hustling,
sure.
and there's excitement in the air. When giant companies want to put production facilities, want to put head offices here, those days were there, and I think they will come again. And that's
I hope so. We've got to stop punishing people for doing well here.
Yeah.
And that's what people feel. The better that you do, the more that you are punished by this government, whether it's a tax on a car that you want to drive, or a tax on your business that you can't afford. You know how to have a small business in this country?
How?
You start with a really, really big one. That's and you think it's a joke, but it's the real deal in Canada. And I'm worried that we don't have the same attractive place. I'm worried that if I love this country. I think it's the best country in the world. I'd choose it 100 times out of 100. But I'm afraid that if my parents had the choice again to come to Canada or go somewhere else, I'm afraid that they would go somewhere else because of the gatekeepers in our economy and because of the direction that we're going.
It's almost like the measuring stick for me is the ability to get mortgages, to get loans.
Sure.
If you're a business or if you're a residence owner or a future residence owner, and it feels like at times you can't get the money unless you don't need it. And that's a scary proposition.
Well, there is one thing that has gotten cheaper in this country.
What's that?
Money. That's under Justin Trudeau. The only thing that has become cheaper is money, and we are printing more of it, and we have less. We've got more money flooding the economy, chasing less goods, making everything more expensive for you and I and everybody around us, and people are feeling it. That's the number one issue. The number one issue is that we are in a cost of living crisis. If
you were sat 2 years ago and you had X amount of money sitting under your mattress and you didn't go and buy goods with it or investments or what be it, all of a sudden you come 2 years later, like this money can barely buy what it could.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's worth less.
And that's where you're seeing people putting money into things like cars and watches all of a sudden. And those are appreciating like crazy because you have to have goods. You have to, or buy stocks or whatever you can do. The one thing you do not want to hold on to money, and that's sad
for sure. And look, those are the lucky decisions that lots of people get to make. And there is a huge disparity there is a lot of hidden poverty in our community, in communities around us, and it's getting worse. And if you don't have super rich parents, good luck to you.
So one of the things I wanted to sum up today's podcast with is the idea of the different levels of government, because you have municipal, you have provincial, you have federal, and you've seen people that come across the different sects, right? You have Patrick that was in he was in Ontario politics, then now he's a mayor, going to go to federal, and it's amazing how people can go across different levels. From that end of it for yourself, we talked about it, and I was saying that I can definitely see the future of where you're headed, and we can see you as the future Prime Minister of Canada. Definitely. You have the young vote, you have the energy, you have the drive, you're an intelligent person, and you want to help your country. And I think that authentically comes through. To see your course of your future, to get you there in the future, how do you see that happening?
Well, I've got a long way to go, and no promises. Again, you can make all the plans you want, and sometimes others have different plans for you. But at the end of the day, I do want to change. I want to change things that are much bigger than Thornhill. I want to change the direction of this country. I want it to go in a different direction. I want it to reflect our values, our shared values as a community. I want to be a strong voice for Thornhill. So I don't know what the future holds, but I know that every single thing I have done, I will continue to promise to serve with humility, yes, and to work super hard, and to reflect the values of the people that put me in that. I just hold the seat for Thornhill. I just sit in this. The seat is Thornhill's seat. Yes. The office is Thornhill's office. The Parliament Hill office is Thornhill's office. I'm just warming the seat and doing the best that I can in the time that I have, and hopefully the good people of Thornhill will continue to trust me to do that. Yes. And I can continue to play a big role in either holding this government to account for the silly decisions that it makes, mm-hmm, or playing a role in a future government, hopefully a big role.
That being said, when people see your picture and they read about you, to understand Melissa Lanstman, at the end of the day, it's not a solo operation, right?
No.
To be an MP in Thornhill, what kind of team? How does that work?
I have an amazing staff. I have an amazing volunteer base. It's a young volunteer base. I was raised, and I always say this, I was raised by the Jewish community. I had mom and dad who worked really hard, and yes, and yeah, they paid attention. But I was raised by by the Hillels of the world and things like that. And they were always places that that you can learn those values, but they always made you comfortable to act on the values that were brought to that were taught to you when you were young. Melissa Lanstman is just the person that occupies the seat in Thornhill. This seat is the community seat, and yes, I am a product of the community.
Very, very humble, and that's very much appreciated. Ultimately, Melissa, when people want to get in touch with you,
for sure,
if they want to support you, support what you're doing in the community, support the Conservative Party, how do they do that? How do they get in touch with you?
I'm the easiest person to find. I'm on every social media channel.
TikTok?
TikTok. I do the TikTok.
Okay. I do the TikTok.
You
on the YouTube?
I don't know how to do the TikTok, but I've got lots of people who teach me how to do that stuff. I'm a late stage millennial, so okay, my knowledge of social media is just a little bit better than the parents.
Okay.
So you can Instagram, Facebook, it's all Melissa Lanstman, melissalanstman.ca. You can sign up for our newsletter. We are super busy. And if you have something that's going on in the community, and we can work together on something, holler. There's always somebody in this office, and half the riding has my cell phone number. The other half will have it soon.
Love it. Love it. Well, Melissa, it's been an ultra pleasure getting to know you. Thank you for taking the time today.
I really appreciate it.
Your team came together really quick to agree for this, and we really appreciate that. And I appreciate your timing. You are a very busy person, and your schedule, I know they have you slotted always as far as phone calls and being in different events. So for you to take that time, it's the most precious commodity you have, and you gave that today for us and our viewers. So really appreciate that. Thanks you.
Thanks so much for having me.
And hope to have you back soon.
Absolutely.
So when we sign off, we do our flex.
We're doing our flex.
And we say, keep living the chosen life.
Keep living the chosen life.
Thank you.